There we go. Let's dive in and talk about this card right here. Now, where do you get this? This is available in my toolkit. So you can download it right here. And this is right up at the top because I just added this the other day. So let me show you how you use it. Over here in the layers panel, you'll see that there's some texture. I've got folders for the holly right up here, which, by the way, I created this just from a built-in shape in Photoshop. So that may be surprising to some people, but this is just a default shape in Photoshop. We have some lettering here that we'll talk about in a moment. This is the frame that is surrounding the picture, and a little gradient colorization for the photo. And then here is the photo. Now you can see that it is a smart object. So that means if you want to paste in your own photo, all you have to do is double click this. And I didn't open a photo to paste in there yet. Let's do this one. So we'll open this guy up. And I'm just going to do a quick select all, Command or Control A, and Command or Control C to copy. And then if we go over here and then we just open this smart object by giving it a double click, here we can just paste in whatever photo we have copied. And of course, to scale it, we would press Command or Control T. And you can't see anything happening because this photo is so big that it's actually reaching outside the canvas area. So what we're going to do is press Command or Control 0. That will scoot it out, and now we can drag from the corners inward. And if I hold Alt or Option, it will scale all four sides at once. So that just makes it a little bit easier. All right, so once we get that in place, we can hit Enter on our keyboard or click the check mark up here. And then we just save this. So a smart object is embedded into the document, and it's kind of its own separate thing. So we've opened it up, we've pasted in this new layer, and then we're just gonna save it. So I'll press Command or Control S, and then we close it, Command or Control W. And look at that. When we arrive back in the document, the image is already placed and it's perfectly where it should be. And it has this gradient map applied to it that gives it this nice warm brown color tone. Okay, so that is how you easily put in your own images here. Now let's talk about the type, because a lot of people ask me about what font this is and how do you edit it, right? So down in the show notes below this video, I have a link to this font. It's called Letter Magic, and it's a lot of fun, right? Like, look at all these swirly doodles and stuff. So it has a lot of different stylistic alternates, and then it also has these little bits. They're called swashes, or I think in this font they are known as ornaments. So I manually placed all these little bits and bobs that you see here, which is really cool. And it makes this beautiful piece. However, I cannot give you this font. I can give you this word art that I created with it. But in order for you to edit the text, so if you wanted this to say like Happy New Year or something, you cannot, I am sorry to say, you cannot go in here to the lettering folder, and there are several layers here. You can't edit it because it's not live text anymore. In order for me to legally give it to you, and then two, for you to be able to see it and have it without having to purchase the font just to see the word art, I converted this to a shape. Okay, so that means, you know, you can't edit it. You can change the colors. You could scale it, you can move it around, but you can't like change the text. So if you do want to put in a different message, you can either get the font if you really like it so much. I think it's currently $15, so not crazy expensive as far as fonts go. Or or you can use, you know, a different font and do anything that you want. So that is a look at how to make use of this. Now let's pop over to our chat and see what is going on in our chat. If you guys have questions, will this be recorded? Yes. It should automatically just go to YouTube as soon as we're done, assuming no huge disaster happens and I have to, like, if we lose the connection or something crashes. I've already had to restart Photoshop like 3 times this morning, so never say never. But yeah, it will be there. And let's see, what other questions? So I hope it will be recorded. Yes. Good. Oh, you guys are liking it. Oh, and here, check out how cool this is, right? This is what's fun. Look at that. I can pull comments onto the screen. So Fred is commenting on my earrings. Thank you, Fred. I made these. And yeah, maybe I'll do a video on that sometime. They are oldies but goodies. So this is so fun. So yeah, we can bring comments in and this will be great. So as we're going through this, if you guys have questions about anything that I've said, leave it in the chat and we can talk about it. Let's go back to the other file here, which is kind of different. So this is like something fun that I was just really experimenting with. And basically I had so much fun with it that I was like, ooh, I'm going to put this in the creative toolkit for people. So here's what it looks like when you download it. When you open the file, you will see this. So here's our smart object where you can change it. We'll do that again. It'll be good review. And then you'll notice that I have upper objects and lower objects. So I'm going to show you actually how I made this one because it's really cool and kind of surprising, and it may be something that's totally new to you. But as usual, this is where you would change it. So let's go get another photo. Here is this cute dog. Now these images are from Unsplash, and unsplash.com, they have people submit their photos and you can use them however you'd like. So they are a fantastic teaching tool. I use them in a lot of my tutorials because I can find what I'm looking for and I can share it. And it's also great when you're learning because you can find images to practice with. And I just think that's so awesome. All right, so I've copied that dog to my clipboard and let's go into the smart object. So you see here, and I think I wrote something like edit here. Edit the card here, yes. So here is the smart card. So you see the little icon here? That lets us know that it is a smart object. So we're gonna double click it. And here we see some more type and a whole bunch of stuff. I've got a paper texture on here. This is the stroke around the frame. I have the little corners here. And the corner pieces and the type right here are all part of a typeface called Baker Street. This one's not as budget friendly as the Letter Magic, but it's still really cool and it has a ton of options. So including these little corner pieces. So that's where I got all of that. So the same deal. If you want to be able to edit the type and work with the text, you would need to purchase the font. But I have converted this letter art into a shape. So again, you can scale it, you can change the colors, all of that fun stuff. So, but right now let's just hide it because you could also put a photo in here. So if we hide all of that stuff, and I'm going to come up here and hopefully, there, it's still on my clipboard. So again, I'll press Command or Control T to get that huge bounding box, and we can't see it because it's huge. So to fit it on our screen, I'll press Command or Control 0. Oh my gosh, look how big this is. And now I'll scale it down to this little puppy here. Yeah, the images that you get, look at that, we'll zoom back in, from Unsplash are usually crazy big in size. So, which is great, but it means, at least for my purposes for teaching, I often have to downsize them. Okay, so same thing. I'll commit this transformation. And now we're going to save this. So just Command or Control S. You don't have to pick a format. You don't have to do any of that business. You'll notice up here that in the tab for this image, if we look up here, we can see that it says .psb. So that is a large file format. It's also the format that the smart objects take. So if you see .psb, it's sort of a clue that this might be like an embedded smart object in your other document. So now we can just close it, and we see that it has moved over here and placed in, and we see that it's properly underneath all these different objects, and that's really cool, right? Okay, so let me see. Let's pop over to the chat real quick, and let's see if you guys have any questions about that. Hi, there we go. Hi, photo artist. I'm sorry, I accidentally just pulled your comment in because I am new to this. Can we use, oh, this is a good one. So Judy says, can we use, there we go, our own fonts in place of yours? Yes, Judy, you absolutely can. You would just need to delete my type layers that are there, the shape layers, or you can hide them if you want to keep them around. But yeah, you can absolutely use your own fonts. So very good question. Any other, let's see, smart objects. So Victoria says that she really likes smart objects. I agree, Victoria. They are fantastic for so many things. And you know what's weird is that there's not a keyboard shortcut assigned by default in Photoshop for converting something to a smart object. And I keep meaning to set my own, and I don't know why. So maybe in a future video, I can show everybody how you do that, and we can try and figure out what would make a good keyboard shortcut for that, because obviously so many key combinations are already taken. Okay, let's go back, and I'm going to show you now how I built these little goodies back here. So in the download, let's see, it's over here. So here's what you get when you download this. Again, you can grab it from this link below, and here's the URL, and there's also a link in the show notes below this. Okay, so when you download it, you'll get a zip file, and when you unzip it, you'll see a little help file, which actually links to this live video, so that when it's recorded, it will be accessible as a tutorial for people who want to know how to do this. And then there's this right here, the holidayspices.pat. So PAT, of course, refers to a pattern, a Photoshop pattern file. So there are a couple of different ways you can load these into Photoshop. You can double click right here, and it should open and load into the proper place in Photoshop. Should is the operative word, right? You never know. Like it's so hard. Everything I say is like, that's how it is today, but you never know if things change, right? So we have to be flexible. So if you double click that, it should load into your patterns in Photoshop. If you want to check, or if it doesn't automatically do it, what you can do is go to your window menu and then choose patterns. So Adobe changed the way, oh my gosh, I have repetitive patterns. Adobe changed the way that this works, right? So it used to be that all of your patterns and your brushes and your shapes and all these things were managed in your presets. But now all of those different categories have their own panels, right? So there's a brushes panel, there's a shapes panel, there's a patterns panel. And that is where you load and unload or export and work with your patterns or your brushes or your shapes or whatever. So here is how you do that then. With your patterns panel open, you would come over here to the menu, and if you choose import patterns, and then you would click on that PAT file, right? You would navigate to this, and then you would open it. So down here, import patterns, open that, and then it will load here, and I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like this. I don't think the fruit is in there. This was something I was doing after the fact. So we'll just delete those for now, and there we go. So if you click on one of these, what's going to happen is not what you probably are looking to do. If you click on this, it's going to just take that whole, that shape, that object, whatever, and it's just going to fill it with a pattern overlay layer. So I never use this panel to actually do my design work. I use it basically to manage my presets like we used to do in the preset manager. Okay, so if you are ever trying to apply a pattern, whether that is as a pattern overlay or an adjustment layer, something like that, if you can't find a pattern that you're looking for, you want to go back to the pattern panel to make sure it's loaded. Okay, but we're not going to apply the patterns from here because I don't know, it makes me crazy. It doesn't work the way that my brain thinks that it should. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to this blank document that I've set up to be ready for this. And we are going to use these patterns, these photographic patterns. They're not yet patterns. They're really just like objects. But we are going to apply them randomly to fill in the background. So we're going to work with a black background because it just kind of helps it look fuller, but you could use whatever color you want. And we're going to be putting the bits that we're adding on separate layers. So I'm clicking to add a new layer here. And now we're ready to apply our first bit. Okay, so here is how we do it. And after we do this, I'll show you how I made these things in the first place. Okay, let's go over to edit, fill, right? And there's lots of things that we can choose here. Foreground, background, color, etc. There's also pattern. And when we click pattern, you'll notice that we have these options here to select our pattern. So this is where we can access those patterns that we loaded from the patterns panel. And let's see, let's do first this holly bit right here. So I will click to select that. Now, if I click OK, it's just going to plop one instance of holly in here. That's not what I'm talking about. What we're going to do is turn on this script setting right here. And now we can apply that little holly in a number of different ways. So we can do things like brick fill. And if I click OK, we're going to get something like this. And there are settings here that we can, you know, fine tune. But then when we click OK, it would fill it in. Now that looks nice, but that's not what that's not what I meant to do. So let's do this again. And I'm going to teach you the keyboard shortcut is Shift Delete or Shift Backspace. And that will bring up your fill dialog box. And what's weird for those of you who are detailed people, if we go to edit fill, you'll see that this shortcut is Shift F5, but Shift Delete is also workable. And really, because you know what, on my Mac, I have the touch bar Mac, and it is terrible. And so my function keys are half the time inaccessible because the touch bar has died. So I like that Shift Delete. And that will bring up the fill dialog right here. And we'll again choose pattern. We've got the holly, but instead of brick fill, we're going to do random fill. And then we click OK. And then we get our options here. Now, it's really hard to know exactly how this is going to look because the preview here that they're showing you is not sized the same as the actual document that you're working with. So this is a lot of trial and error. So be prepared to do something and then undo it and redo it, which is why the keyboard shortcut is so handy. All right, so here we can control the density. So basically how many of these holly leaves are we wanting? Here we can adjust the scale. So do we want the holly to be, huge as its maximum size? And we can set a minimum size so that there can be some variation in the sizes, which is nice. I definitely want the pattern to rotate as it fills this in. And if we want to randomize the color and brightness, we can do that. It's very low setting right here, but we'll go ahead and click OK. And we see now that this has filled in this layer. So what's cool is we can duplicate this layer. We could flip it around. So I can press Command or Control J to make a copy. And then I could, just like move it. Or I could maybe Command or Control T and then right click and choose Flip Horizontal. Now here is the limit. Oh, but then we're getting a mirrored image. So let's also flip vertical. There we go. The thing that we have to keep in mind about this stuff is that this is not vector information. It's literally just pixels. So what happens is if you want to move something, you can see, let me hide one of these. If I grab this layer and I'm like, oh, I just want to move it down a little bit, you can see that it's cut off because it is just pixels and it's just filling the canvas area. So there's nothing off canvas that you can move into place. So you just kind of have to know that and then, work with it. So here we have a bunch of holly. Maybe we do one more blank layer and let's just run the holly random fill again. And maybe this time, I don't know, maybe we up the density even more. Let's just see what this looks like. Who knows? Oh yes, lots of holly, right? And you can see they're all rotated in different ways and it looks really great. Okay, so that's the holly. Then we would make another new layer and then we would repeat this with the different items. So I'll bring up the fill again and this time we might choose the orange and again random. Maybe not quite so dense on the orange, but again, we're really just guessing because it's hard to say. And there we have some orange slices. Now here is what you can also do is that we would probably want some of the holly to be on top of the oranges. So we could either make another layer and sprinkle some holly on it, or since we already have a few layers of holly, we could drag one of them on top of the oranges. So you see how we're starting to build all of these layers, right? I mean, it almost looks just great the way that it is. So I went through and just added all of these different elements. So in the little pattern set, there are candy canes, there's a snowflake, there are the oranges, cinnamon sticks, pine cones, a poinsettia. So I didn't even use all of these in my example, but I just included them for fun. This, I didn't try at all. This is like a little sprig. Oh, there, look at that. So yeah, remember again, if you click here, it's going to add it with this annoying pattern fill, which is nice, I suppose, but it just, I wish you had to like drag it or something because I do that a lot by accident. Okay, so that is a look at how you build that. And then to really drill this home, we're going to add some drop shadows to this. So to do that, I'm just going to double click on one of the layers just in this empty area. We'll double click and let's go to drop shadow. I've got a number here, but it doesn't matter. You probably have one, that's fine. Enable one by putting a check mark here, and then you click on drop shadow to activate it and bring up the settings over here. And now we can determine where we want this drop shadow to be, how intense we want it to be. And this is going to add some depth to the scene. So that looks great. We'll go ahead and click OK. And now to apply this same drop shadow to the other layers, We could right click and choose copy layer style. And then we'd have to move over here and right click and choose paste layer style. So instead, what I like to do is I hold down Alt or Option on my keyboard, and then I drag the drop shadow and just drop it on all these other layers. And look at the depth that we have created in this scene from practically nothing. I mean, we just did that like so quickly and easily, and I think it is so fun. So let's pop over and see what questions you guys have about this, and then I will show you how I actually made all those little bits. So, can we change one of the background layers? You can change anything, Judy. Yes, your own fonts. I like this one. Judy wants to know if you can replace the photo with your own. Of course. That would be terrible if everyone had to use only what I ever gave. Yes, Judy, you are getting the hang of this. You can customize everything. Let's see. What are the parameters of the black layer? So I'm not sure what you mean by parameters. Oh, the length and width. Thank you. So those documents are just I think I made like a 5x7 that is 300 pixels per inch. So that's a standard, greeting card kind of size. So whenever I'm creating greeting card type things, I usually make a 5x7. And then if I want to change that into a 5x5, I might make a version that is then cropped into a square. But this one is 5x5 at 300 pixels per inch. And that's actually a really good thing to ask about, Judy, because it matters when you're creating the little pattern elements. So I will show you that in a minute. So this one says, will these work to do? Yes, that's a fun idea. You could create your own Zoom background with this. So this would work with anything. You could just create a new blank document in whatever size you want it, and then start adding layers and running the script to fill with a random pattern, and yeah, have fun. And I can't wait to see what kinds of things you guys might come up with. Lori wants to know if the holly and oranges are in the toolkit. Yes. So Lori, when you download this card template design, it comes with the patterns to make your own with or to experiment with. So, I think it's fun when people are learning. I want to be able to give them not just a template, right? Because when you make templates, you kind of have to clean it up. You kind of have to lock it down. Sometimes things in the template won't work, like the fonts, if the template user does not have the fonts. So I try to make my templates flexible as they can be, but also I want to include, the goodies, like the little word art in this case. That is why in the patterns then I did include the little oranges and things. So you can either make your own, or you can just experiment and see how it works. And then you can make your own pattern bits, which I'll show you also in a minute. Okay. Where is the option to import your brain? So, oh, Fred, you are cracking me up. I don't know. Whenever that becomes possible, there's a lot of things I'd like to import into my brain. So we'll have to see what comes up with that. Let's see. Where is the file for all of this stuff? Okay, good question. So Christopher, you want to go to this URL. That is my website. And when you subscribe, I will send you an email with the link to access not only this file, but tons of other stuff. So I'm basically just always adding things to this creative toolkit for my subscribers as I teach more classes and just have more fun in Photoshop, really. Whenever I create something that I think, hey, this is cool and other people might enjoy it, I toss it into the toolkit and subscribers get an email saying, hey, there's something new, and then they can download it. So if you sign up, then you can download it and you'll get all these goodies too. Cool. Okay, so let's bop back over here and let me show you how I made like the holly and the orange and like where did that even come from, okay? So what I did, I even have some of the sources here, I think. Yeah, so for example, these are images that I found from Unsplash. Remember I told you that Unsplash is amazing. So, and you have the rights. They're all like royalty free, and I mean, they're free use, just like totally free use commercially and otherwise. So I like to go and just find things to extract elements from. So let me do this one because this one has a lot of the pieces in one photo. So I found this one photo on Unsplash and I was like, oh, hey, I can extract some things here. So for example, I went in down here and I selected this holly. So I'm not gonna go into like the details of all the different ways you would make selections right now. But I selected this and I also selectively disincluded certain parts, right? Because this leaf down here is cut off. So I don't want that included. So I just didn't select this part. So I only selected the parts that I wanted and then I removed the background and turned that into a pattern. So let's do it with the orange here, for example. I think, yeah, should we do the orange? Oh, here's one that's not. Why didn't I do that? I did this one and then I had to clone out this little bit right here and I didn't even see this guy. You see? That is, that's life, right? That's how this works in the real world. Okay, so what we're gonna do is grab our marquee, in this case, the elliptical marquee tool here. And then I can just click and drag to make a selection. Let me go full screen here so you can see that better. All right, so we'll click and drag. I'm holding shift, which will make this a perfect circle. But I don't know, maybe oranges are not perfect circles. So maybe I'll let go of shift. All right, so I'm just making a rough selection, right? So we'll do this. And then if we hit the mask button, we'll get rid of everything else, okay? So here we have just our little orange bit. Now I'm gonna crop this down to the orange. And a really easy way of doing that is coming up to image, trim, and I just want to trim away the transparent pixels from the top, bottom, left, and right. So I'll click OK, and boom, it just automatically crops it like that, which is, now here's the fun of doing a broadcast like this is like, wow, wasn't that magical? I have sound effects and everything, you guys. This is like a whole new world. I don't know. I apologize in advance. But anyway, so you can select the orange and do a little trim. Again, that was image, trim, and I always just leave it set like this. So I just hit OK and it's trimmed. Now, here's the thing is that we need to size this because when you create these patterns, it's very much like when you create a brush in the sense that that pattern or brush is going to be created at the size that it is, right? So if this orange is huge, then when I go to place it into a document that's 5x7 at 300 pixels per inch, right? So that's like 2100 pixels across. And let's say this orange measures like 5,000 pixels across. If that's what's happening, and I try to run this random pattern fill with this gigantic orange slice, what will likely happen is that I'll run the fill and it will just, it's so big, it will be like off canvas somewhere and I won't even see it. And then I'll be like, what is happening? This isn't working. And it's not that it's not working. It's that you want to size it appropriately for the intended use first. Okay, so this is also some trial and error because I don't know what size I really want it to be. So I'm just going to guess, right? So if we are imagining a printed card that is 7 inches wide, how big out of those 7 inches would I want a little orange slice to be? Like maybe an inch? I don't know. Let's try it. Okay, so here's how we're going to resize this. We're going to come up into image size. And I've taught entire workshops on dealing with image size, so not going to get into the like big picture of how all of this works right now, but here's what you would do, right? So first thing I'm going to do is uncheck resample. What that does is it links with height and resolution together so that I can get this where I want it without throwing any information away. So our document is 300 pixels per inch. So I'll type in 300 here. We can see that because these are linked, the corresponding width and height is roughly 2.5 inches, okay? Now that is bigger than what we want because we want this to be about an inch, maybe smaller, we'll see. The reason we have to put this at 300 pixels per inch is so that we're talking about the same, it's really so, I backed into this not very well. It's really so that we can be comparing the same things, okay? So another way to think about this is maybe in pixels. That might be easier. So if our 7-inch document has 300 pixels per inch, what is that? 2,100 pixels across? So how many pixels out of 2,100 would we want the orange to be? I really don't know. So maybe like 300? We'll see. So let's do this. Then we'll come over here. We'll leave resample on. We'll come to this drop down here, and instead of dealing with inches, let's switch to pixels. So we're all talking about the same thing. And now we'll just type in 300 pixels. Okay, that's so much easier. Sorry. Yeah, that's what happens with live streams sometimes. Okay, 300 pixels. We'll click OK. It's going to compute. Oh, don't crash Photoshop. What have I done to you? Oh, I was nervous for a second there. Okay, so it has downsized our orange. Let me zoom it back in here. And now we're ready to make the pattern. So we're going to come up to edit and we're going to say, where am I? Oh, you know what? Don't be active on the mask. Click on the actual layer itself. Then you can choose edit and define pattern. Here we go. Edit, define pattern. We can give it a name, like let's name it with its pixel size. So it's a 300 pixel orange. That way we know what we're dealing with if we want to edit this later. So we'll click OK. And that's it now. Now if I want to go back to the original image, I'll open my history panel. So window, history, and then I'll just click the thumbnail here. And what that will do is restore this image back to it was when we started, because now I can go in and make similar patterns from the cinnamon stick, from the pine cone, etc. Okay, now let's go back over to our fill and we'll hide all of these layers. We'll make a new one. And then we would just run our fill. So again, edit, fill, random fill. Now let's choose the orange we just made, which is this guy. Okay, we'll choose that guy, random, okay, and let's see our settings. Here's where we can adjust the size a little bit more. We never want to go higher or much higher than 1 because that would mean that it's enlarging the pattern that we made. And then you might start to see pixelated yuck, okay? So you want to make this pattern at the largest size you think you'd want to use it, because you can always set a maximum size of smaller than that. Okay, so I don't know, a lot of trial and error, like I said. Let's make a bunch of them and we'll click OK. And there you go. That didn't turn out half bad. I think it actually is pretty good. So let's review that because I tangled you all up in my thinking web here. So what did we do? We went over to an image. We selected a piece of it, right? Then we masked it. So, or you can copy it to a new layer, whatever it is you want to do, delete everything else. And then we trimmed it down to size. And then we resized it. So truly the easiest way to do that is not with inches because then you have to deal with resolution. So instead, just think pixels. So that 7-inch wide card with 300 pixels per inch, we're talking about 2,100 pixels across. How big in terms of pixels do we want an orange to be in that 2,100 pixel card? So here we just picked 300. So when we go into image size, you want to leave resample on, and you would just change this to say pixels, and then all you have to do is type in a width of whatever it is you want. Okay, simple. Resample on, pixels, enter a number. Then you click OK. Then you choose Edit, Define Pattern, making sure you're not on the layer mask if you've used one. Give it a name, and then you just fill it. And that's how that works, right? So yeah, let's check in. Let me check in with you guys and see. This is where, you know, when I run my own show, there's nobody moderating comments to like help me out. So I have to, I have to read over here. Felix says, use pixels. Got it. Yes. That's just the easiest way because then we don't have to deal with resolution, right? Because a pixel is a pixel, but an inch, that can change. Okay. Stacy. Oh, she was answering Judy. Thanks, Stacy. You guys are great. This is great. It's like I have my own support team right here in the chat. That is awesome. Let's see. GK says, my selections are always too close. I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but in this case, so when you make selections, right, one thing you want to think about is that you're in control. You can choose not to include things. Like when I selected the holly, I chose not to include one of the leaves because it was cut off, or maybe it's just weird and you don't want it. So you can sort of play the director there when it comes to selection. So you can sometimes make them closer. So when I selected that orange just now, I actually made my ellipse a little bit smaller than the orange itself because then I can cut off the edges and it's fine. If I made it a little too big, then I'd have to worry about cleaning up the edges, and nobody has time for that. How do you increase the size of your selection? GK wants to know. That is a great question. Let me bop over here and show you. So in Photoshop, when you make a selection, once you let go of your mouse, you're like, okay, and I'm using a marquee tool, right? So once you've made some sort of selection and you've let go of your keyboard and such, it's kind of a done deal, except you can come up to the select menu and choose transform selection. And look at that. Now you'll get your, transform handles. And now I could turn this into an oval, or I could scale it. And then when I'm happy with it, I would just hit the check mark or press enter on the keyboard, right? So it is possible. Again, it's under the select menu, and then you can just choose transform selection. Let's see. Judy, can I scan in or photograph my own watercolor holly ornament and pine cone? Yes, of course, Judy. You can do it all, Judy. There are no limits. It's only what you can imagine and what you can wrangle Photoshop into doing for you. So yes, you could absolutely, you could take a picture. You could go out in your backyard and get a pine cone and take a picture of it, or you could paint a pine cone. take a picture of it or scan it or, you know, paint it maybe in Photoshop. And then you can use that. So pretty much anything you could define as a pattern. Just remember you want to make it at the appropriate size. Okay. And I want to say a shout out to Graham P for this suggestion. So in my newsletter, I asked when I said, hey, I have this crazy idea. Maybe let's try a live webinar and hope I don't fall on my face with the tech support. And I asked people to submit questions and I got a number of things. And one of them was from Graham P, who was asking me about creating densely filled backgrounds. And he may or may not have been talking about seamless backgrounds. There is a difference. Seamless ones we can do another time. But he sent me sample images, and what I saw in the sample images that were, at least some of them, were not seamless. They were just very densely filled. And so I thought I would show you how to do that. So thank you, Graham. Let's see, what else do we have on here? We have some other questions that I wanted to, some other Q&A that people submitted previously that I was going to show you. Let me go, I guess we can do it, and we'll just, I'll keep this open. Okay, let's say we're going to add text here. So Eric had asked, he said he was having trouble with type layers and things not really working out the way that he wanted. So let me show you what I think was happening, right? I'm only can guess. So here's the thing. When you are creating type, he said he was creating type layers and then he would try to make a new type layer, but it kept going back to the previous type layer. And so here's what I think is happening. So if we have some text, oh goodness, that's small. Let's make that bigger. Okay, and let's spell things correctly. There we go. If we have some text and we want to add some more text, here's where people get into a little bit of trouble. If you are too close, hold on. I didn't do this the way I meant to. Some text. There we go. Okay. Text some, that works as well. All right, so if you have some text like this, and then you are trying to add another piece of text, maybe down here, you have to really be careful about where you are clicking with your cursor, right? So you can see that if I position my cursor over here, it is shaped kind of like an open book. I call this the butterfly cursor because kind of looks like a butterfly. But if I click here, I will create a new text layer. You see that? And then I could type some more stuff. However, if I click a little too close to an existing text element, then you see that the cursor changes to this little, I call it the worm. It's like a little worm, but this is an insertion cursor. So this allows me to insert my cursor into an existing type layer. So my guess, Eric, is that you are maybe accidentally clicking too close. And so particularly this can be a problem if you're drawing text boxes. It looks like they've made this a little bit better than it used to be. But there's two ways to add text. You can click and drag, which makes a text box. Or you can just click, which creates just, we call it headline type. So it just runs and runs and runs until you hit return. So anytime you want multiple lines of text, you might want a text box. It just kind of depends what you're doing. That could be a whole other class. But you just want to be aware that when you're clicking with the type tool, you want to be careful and see what your cursor looks like, right? Is it this little winged butterfly, which is going to create an entirely new type layer? Or do you have the little insertion cursor, like the caterpillar, right? So we have a butterfly or a caterpillar. The caterpillar is going to insert itself into an existing text layer. So it can just be kind of frustrating if things are close together or you're not super careful where you're clicking, then that, oh no. We don't want 3D workspace. What have I clicked on? Okay. So you just want to be careful where you are going with this stuff. And now Photoshop, oh, I think it's good that we're approaching the end here because the other day when I accidentally clicked on this, Photoshop crashed on me. So I'm going to pop back over to the chat and see what is going on. Here we have a question. GK, using select item, can I resize the marching ants? It seems on a black and white drawing, the selection always cuts off the outside of the line. Is there a menu item that gives sizing for selections? Oh, that's a good question. So I am thinking, I think Photoshop's quitting on me. Oh, maybe not. Yep, kind of. So let's see. We'll go back to this and yeah, it's not. Photoshop has left the building. Photoshop has left me and abandoned me. I clicked on the 3D workspace, which if you don't know, Adobe is retiring that from Photoshop because they have a bunch of other 3D tools that you can use. And so at the moment, if you click on the 3D workspace, you get a message that says, we're getting rid of this. And it asks you if you want to go into the workspace anyway. And even though I said no, it kind of tried and then I got stuck. So, oh, Photoshop. Oh, let's hope they remove that button soon and then we'll just never accidentally click on it. But I'm thinking, to answer your question, that you might be able to make a selection. And then if you go up to the select transform selection that I showed you earlier, I think you should see numbers, like an input value. So you could tell it you want it to be 5 inches or 300 pixels or whatever up there in the control panel. And then you could press enter. And I think that'll do it. It's been a long time since I tried it that way. But I think that should work for you. So, okay, what else? Anything else? I'm trying to keep this to a decent time because, you know, we could do this all day. I could do this all day. Pat is asking, will this be available later? Yes, Pat, it should be up shortly. So stay tuned. I think it just, when we end this, I think it just kind of converts. So, all right. Oh, guys, you guys are so good there in the chat. So let's just talk quickly, a quick review of what all we did today, because it was a lot. We learned about the 2 different templates that are free that you can get from my creative toolkit. So there is a link to that down in the show notes below. So this one here, and then we also did this guy here, which also comes with those pattern pieces. And then I showed you how we can use the random fill to populate a whole background. And it just works so well, especially for things like fruit, flowers, candy. Candy would be a fun one. I'm thinking Valentine's Day. Oh, I have ideas now. So we talked about doing that. And then let's see. Oh, I had one more question from V. Martin about what to do when your timeline is grayed out and you're trying to make a GIF. She said, what do you do in that case? And I can't really show you right now, so we'll have to come back to that. But if I'm ever doing something in Photoshop and something truly weird is happening, not user error, which is 99% of the time what it is, but if something totally weird is happening, you can Google it. And actually, I Googled this because I wasn't sure what your issue is. So when you guys submit questions, if you can, show me a screenshot or show me the image or like the status of your layers panel or something, because that helps give me context so I can better answer your question. But I Googled this and I couldn't tell if it was like a problem where you just couldn't select it, or if you'd already gone down a different path, which then precluded it. So anyway, I Googled it and I found some interesting stuff on Reddit. So in the show notes below, I pasted the Reddit link, where apparently it seems like there has been a bit of a recent issue with accessing the timeline for some people in Photoshop. So hopefully that will help you out. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, you guys. This is so fun. And aside from Photoshop crapping out here and giving up on us at the end, I don't think it went too badly. So I think things will continue to get better from here. And I am so glad that you could join me today. So yeah, thank you for being here. And you can always leave comments below and let me know what else you'd like to have me tackle for you, or reach out through my website. So with that, I will say goodbye and thank you. Have a great weekend.